The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Great to be with you on Friday, Halloween. Wow, Halloween falling on a Friday. The kiddos excited. Fall in the air. Be careful out there. I have a few words about Halloween later in the show, but right now, kind of a blockbuster, really. When you, in the grand scheme of things, what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said yesterday is nothing short of explosive. About the deliberate suppression of life-saving drugs during the COVID nonsense, all to prop up multi-billion-dollar vaccine machines and so forth. Now, you and I know this. I understand I'm speaking to, because you listen to this show, I'm speaking to the most intellectually mature audience in all of radio. So we get it. We understand that. This is why I was canceled from many of the social media platforms that I had back in the day, even YouTube, who just a few weeks ago wrote me a nice little email and said, we canceled your channel, Mr. Billings, due to an error. Please accept our apologies, yada, yada, yada. So they invited me back, but this is what happened. I talked truth about the COVID nonsense, the jab and so forth, and they canceled me. If you want to go over there and check it out, welcome to The Right Side, the name of the YouTube channel. Join the fun over there as well. But this is really about the deliberate suppression of life-saving measures, all to bolster up Fauci, absolutely so, and those that are involved in big pharma. So we're going to dive right into it. This is important, and this is the process by which we see accountability and justice. And I again, as I usually always try to do, I remind you that justice is intentionally slow coming in the United States. The founders did not intend to have mobs lynch people, right? Justice in America does not always happen with the speed at which I or you would like, but it has to be thorough and it has to be complete. So although these things take time, we hope that we do we demand that we do. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in his dream job, by the way, this is his self-admitted dream job, shaking up the health industry and the establishment yesterday, laid it all out. He exposed how ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, two drugs, by the way, with decades of safety records, billions of doses given worldwide, were viciously attacked because they stood in the way of profits for Fauci and for the big pharma industry that he was trying to protect. Now, not because none of this was said, none of this criticism of ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine was said because they didn't work, mind you, but because it admittedly, they would, like I say, stood in the way or have torpedoed the entire vaccine rollout. The entire rollout would have been jeopardized, if not completely halted, because there's this federal law, as it turns out, straight from the books. It blocks the FDA from issuing emergency use authorization, EUA, no emergency use vaccination or authorization for vaccines if there's already an effective and approved treatment out there. That's right. No emergency use authorization, no fast-tracked vaccines, and proof there goes that $200 billion gravy train for big pharma and their buddies in the government. And Bobby Kennedy didn't mince words yesterday. He pointed to the mountain of evidence that is out there. 17,000 doctors had petitioned for these treatments and peer-reviewed studies, meaning that this is not just some work of fiction or hypothetical theories. This is peer-reviewed studies that showed real results. And you had experts like Yale's Dr. Harvey Risch and Dr. Peter McCullough, who, by the way, has published more on this topic than anybody else. These guys treated tens of thousands of patients successfully with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And so their verdict is that we could have saved 500,000 American lives if the powers that be hadn't buried those options. So yes, and I have never denied the existence of COVID. COVID is real. It's the treatment of it that I was always suspect of and upset about when I saw this news. So, oh no, we cannot have more options other than what Fauci was working on. And the medical machine then begins to kick into overdrive, the machine that he wanted to benefit from and by which he would have benefited from. So partners, ivermectin, horse paste. Remember the stories? Hydroxychloroquine, dangerous poison. You can't mess with that. And ladies and gentlemen, when things are said in the news and the media, because they've got their narrative and their agenda, people believe that. So we were dubbed the kooks. We were dubbed the conspiracy theorists. Meanwhile, we have ivermectin that was awarded the Nobel Prize for human use. And yet they continue to call it horse paste nonsense poison. And even after the vaccine got the emergency use authorization, the smears about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine kept on coming. And why? Because the law might force all of that to be revoked if a better treatment popped up. It wasn't science, folks, that they were talking about. It was straight up protection of a financial empire that they all wanted to take part in. Remember the masks? How many times have I told you guys? A dozen at least. The mask was never about our health. Never. The mask was political, and it still is, political signaling. At the beginning, it was a sign of animus towards President Trump. Animus, if you're from Raytown, Missouri, that means dislike or hate. The sign of hate towards President Trump. That's the mask. And today, they still use it. I'm telling you that 9 times out of 10, when you see somebody in a mask, it's part of the uniform of the radical liberal communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. It's part of their uniform. And they are virtue signaling where they stand. Now, I know there are some dear, older folks that still believe that these masks can protect them. I still see it at church on Sundays. When I go to mass, I still see a few, and my heart breaks for them. It's just not about your health. But we all know this. And it's more than a scandal when you begin to look at this. And RFK Jr. brings this all up again yesterday. So it's fresh new news because it's a new take. And we hope that this new take brings about accountability. But it's more than just a scandal. It's a betrayal. How many families lost loved ones because of the narrative that had to be protected at all costs? So Bobby's revelation yesterday pulls back the curtain on a deep state health cartel that is real, and we need to be aware of and continue to question. And it just has tentacles into everything from vaccines, the childhood vaccine schedule, and it's linked to autism, et cetera, et cetera. So now that RFK Jr. is in there influencing policy, maybe, just maybe, we'll see some real accountability, ladies and gentlemen. But as always, bless yourself with patience, and we will see.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the set of my show, Doug Billings. Hey, my good friends at EMP Shield, that's electromagnetic pulse, in case you're from Raytown, Missouri. Electromagnetic pulse could wipe out your home electrical system, could wipe out your vehicle. And thanks to the radical liberal agenda that was put forth under Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris, there are lots of people in this country who want to do us harm. And maybe an EMP device would be their chosen weapon. But EMP Shield gives you a device that can protect you. This little baby here goes on your home outlets, a computer, a router, whatever you want to protect. And then they also have a larger model like this. You can still hold it in the palm of your hand that goes on your vehicle battery so that you can get out of trouble from point A to point B. EMPshield.com. Promo code Doug, ladies and gentlemen. Save yourself. Save your property. EMPshield.com. Promo code Doug. We're in this together, folks. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
We'll talk a little bit about that. There's a couple of stories today that I want to discuss with regards to Halloween. But first, let me wrap up what we began with this hour with Fauci and with what Bobby Kennedy said yesterday. So Fauci is the architect of the entire COVID nonsense, right? He is the architect of how the treatments were supposed to roll out, the vaccine, et cetera, gain of function studies, et cetera, right? So leading the charge to discredit all of the other drugs that were out there and that could have been and that are effective. So in one of his final desperate acts, remember, before leaving office, Administrator Biden issued a preemptive pardon to Fauci back in January this year. You remember this. Preemptive pardons. He gave a preemptive pardon to a lot of people. Fauci was one of them. Full and unconditional. A full and unconditional get out of jail free card for any offenses that might come about related to the handling of the COVID issue. He had a batch of them. Many people got them. General Milley was another one. Remember that one. The January 6th committee. Oh, and don't forget Hunter. So clearly aimed at shielding these people from the incoming Trump administration's scrutiny about what they did to us. Biden's team gets out and calls it, these are protecting public servants. This is what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen. We are protecting the public servants who have given their life in service to the Republic. Right. But let's call it what it is, shall we? It's a swamp creature covering for other swamp creatures. Now, and here is a little bit of juicy detail about this. So the reports, and you probably have heard about this, the GOP-led House Oversight Committee happens to be looking into the little device called the AutoPen, and that Biden may have been, in fact, in such cognitive decline that many of his executive orders, including these pardons, were signed using the AutoPen, and he might not have known what he was doing. Now, the AutoPen has been used for decades by presidents, okay? And by presidents who know what they're doing, and presidents who know and who give authority to the staff to use the AutoPen to sign certain things. So it's been around for a long time, but this committee is blistering Biden. The report questions whether or not he, when he was president, even knew what the heck he was signing. And that's serious because there's concerns about the validity of the AutoPen pardons, among other things. So legally, again, used by presidents for decades, they are legal, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to be cognizant of what you're assigning the AutoPen to sign. So the experts argue that if a president knows what they're doing, and yes, if they've authorized the use of the AutoPen, the orders or the pardons that are signed are valid. But the analysis about this particular case is the Constitution gives the president pardon power, vast and a wide swath. The president can pardon, as we've seen, basically anything or anyone he wants to. But it doesn't, the Constitution doesn't specify the signature method. So they're looking into this. And if evidence shows that Biden wasn't personally authorizing this or wasn't aware or didn't understand, was incapacitated, these orders and pardons could be ruled null and void. Absolutely, say the critics and the experts, especially with ongoing investigations pushing for probes into these illegitimate AutoPen actions. So this is a developing story. It's current news, it's current events, and Trump has already hinted that he will challenge these executive orders and the pardons that Biden has put into place. There's even a bill in Congress to ban AutoPens for pardons just outright. You can use it for other things, the executive orders, but not for pardons. And so if those pardons crumble, Fauci could be in some real trouble here. Congressional hearings, maybe even charges for misleading the public, crimes against humanity, mass genocide. I mean, that's all potentially on the table. And we see it. And with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the helm of these health reforms, the truth serum is now flowing like milk and honey. The deep state shields are cracking. And it could really bring the kind of accountability that we have been waiting for. So that's I think it's a big deal. It's up, fresh news right off the wire. This is what they're looking at. Trump, it's hysterical. You've all seen the hallway of presidents leading up. It's the outdoor hallway that leads up to the Oval Office, and the picture for Biden is the auto pen. Well, we're going to see what happens here, but I want you to know I'm aware. I am so outraged because we were all affected, not just by putting us at risk with regards to health, but our careers. I mean, how many of you faced termination if you didn't get the jab? And how many of you, unfortunately, gave in to that? Because, well, obviously, you're scared. You need your income. You didn't know what to do. Thankfully, I had the show. I had nobody breathing down my neck. But remember, my story, too, in 2020, I was in corporate America, the vice president of human resources, and I did not draft the policies that the executive committee wanted based on the fear that Fauci was putting out there. And as a result, I was fired. And so I started the right side, and I wanted to tell the truth. And I began to tell the truth about the jab and about the certain theft of an American presidential election and so forth and so on. And I was fired from corporate America and then canceled off of social media because I was talking about these issues. Well, thank goodness for networks like the Real Talk Radio Network, where you can get truth, unfettered truth. And you always do your own research, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll see where it goes. I know we need to be patient. We need to let them do their work. American justice, as intended by the founders, is not meant to be always swift. We need to give these folks time. Now, let's hold them accountable, and let's continue to talk about it. But we also have a story that proves just how unhinged Trump and the conservative movement in America under Trump is making some who used to claim to be conservatives just go absolutely crazy. There's an entire conservative elite class out there who have become, what other word can you use other than infected with Trump derangement syndrome? And they will do everything they can to protect the likes of Fauci and others and so forth, General Milley. They're the neocon group. Mike Pompeo is one of these guys. Mike Pompeo is not a good guy. Tried to order the assassination of Julian Assange. So we look at that group of people and we know that we have heard truth. We have seen truth. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. But as part of my endeavor to inform you of who these people are, kooks, dangers, tyrannical people, some of whom we once viewed as one of us. There are some people out there we really thought this guy was one of us.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Doug Billings, The Right Side. What are you all doing this weekend? Let's get together, go do some karaoke. What do you think? Hey, in all seriousness, the reason I'm going to get into this next topic is because I want you to be aware of the people who may have at one time been considered one of us, but who now are in Kookville and leading people astray by virtue of what they do and what they say because of Trump derangement syndrome. Someone who we once may have thought is one of us completely and most thoroughly now engaged in some of the most intellectually mature commentary about Trump that I've ever seen or read. And so Exhibit A, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bill Kristol, the poster man for Never Trump neocons, out there saying that he would rather vote for Zoran Mandami, a full-blown Democrat socialist. I mean, let's call him what he is. He's a communist sympathizer for the mayor of New York City, right? So Bill Kristol wants him over and above Andrew Cuomo. I mean, Bill Kristol has lost it. So be aware, he has lost it. He was in an interview, and he said that going back to Cuomo would be pathetic and ridiculous, while shrugging off Mandami's radical plans for New York, like setting up government-run grocery stores. Now, what can go wrong there? He even admits, Kristol does, that Mandami's young, he's inexperienced, and might not destroy the city. He might not destroy it. Well, talk about setting a low bar, Bill. Way to go. I mean, yeah, he might not destroy him. We'll have to wait and see. I know he's young and inexperienced. He's a communist, but he might not destroy New York. So they're setting the bar low right away. And let me tell you, Bill Kristol has gone absolutely nuts since 2016. Trump derangement syndrome on steroids, so severe that it's turned him into one of the most intellectually immature talking heads on the circuit. And remember, this is the same Bill Kristol who co-founded the Weekly Standard, which was for a time considered to be a standard bearer, conservative or outlet. But now we look back in hindsight, having been awakened to what the deep state really is. Bill Kristol and his ilk are nothing but former cheerleaders for endless wars and big government intervention, not only here in America, but abroad as well. So, but once Trump came on board and came along, started putting America first, Kristol absolutely flipped out. And he started bashing everything that didn't align with his establishment bubble. And what happened to the Weekly Standard? It went belly up in 2018, flat broke and irrelevant because his anti-Trump rants alienated readers and even his own owners at Clarity Media Group, who had pulled the plug after the magazine started talking about these kinds of anti-Trump messages. So Trump found, he called out yesterday, Bill Kristol, pathetic and dishonest. The magazine, he said, run by a failed procrastinator. And he's right. Trump usually is. But Kristol, just be on the watch for him. Not one of us, not a good guy. He's slumming it now. He's got a new job over at the Bulwark, Bulwark, Bulwark. It's another anti-Trump rag that's basically a lifeboat for washed up neocons like Kristol. So the latest stunt with Bill Kristol supporting Mamdani, and this is a current events issue, and I don't want to see commie socialists in our government. It's not what the founders intended. There is a part of me, and Grant Cardone mentioned this earlier in the week when he was on the program. There is a part of me that wants Mamdani to win, just so that the New York situation can be seen, what he does with it is seen, and that people wake up to the destruction that will be inevitable. All right. So that's a part of me. I'm not on board with him at all. But if New York votes him in, let's just see. Let's just see the damage. Let's see what happens and what kind of awakening happens in the Big Apple. So a socialist experiment gone wrong. Socialism, communism never, words are important, never works. And so Kristol, he's not just deranged. It's a betrayal of everything that he once supposedly believed in, pretended to stand for. So now he's a neocon hawk railing against, who used to rail against big government overreach, but who now has such a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome that he's going to support a 33-year-old radical who thinks that the state should run your business. And why is it? Because people like Bill Kristol, not just like him, but people who are associated with him, people who have the same mindset as Bill Kristol, the same vibe, they just want to stick it to Cuomo because they think that Trump's image, his reputation, and this is crazy because it's not true, but they think somehow Mamdani will harm Trump's reputation. They think they're banking on some sort of a long shot that Mamdani might actually bring profitability and any kind of semblance of success to New York. And if he does, then they can lambaste Trump. So that's part of what's at the core of it. But even though, I mean, look, Cuomo, I'm certainly not a Democrat. Cuomo, for all of his flaws and all of his failures, at least he represents some semblance of centrist Democrat sanity compared to Mamdani's Marxist playbook that will be cascaded down upon the good people of New York should he win. It's just unique proof of how Trump derangement syndrome rots your brain, folks. Kristol is so obsessed with hating Trump and anything remotely tied to traditional power structures, that he'd rather see New York slide into a communist chaos than back a familiar figure like Cuomo. Intellectually mature, yes, jumping from warmongering conservatism to cheering on socialists just to own the liberal narrative, or to own the narrative that might lead to a possible chance, a very remote one, where someone like Mondami might be able to bring success to a city like New York. He's a kook, Bill Kristol. He's a kook, plain and simple, and he is to be. You need to be wary of him. If you run across anything that he does, anything that he writes, it is not relevant to what we are doing, what we true patriots are trying to recover in this republic. So be on guard. I mean, Mondami, look, we all know Mondami is going to tank New York City faster than you can say government cheese. It's going to be a disaster on parade. We will watch it happen in real time, and we'll see. We'll see the media will spin everything that he does. They will be under orders from the radical liberal hierarchy, because it is now controlled by a vast minority of thought, AOC and all of that, and Schumer will have to give in, and the narrative will go out and be dispensed to the media to talk about how great life is under communism in New York City. Just watch. I mean, and they might try to pretty up the word and put some lipstick on the word communism, but it's going to be what it is, and we'll see. We'll see. You're hearing it here first. They're going to have orders to support this man no matter what. And then you're going to see AOC primary Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer may resign, but he and Mitch McConnell, their days are numbered. We'll see. But Schumer is scared. He's scared of the radical liberal minority. That's why he's going along with everything from the shutdown to Mamdani and everything in between. Now, if you think that the swamp couldn't get any slimier, one of the most shameful, shameless hypocrites in Congress, making news again because of what he's done behind the scenes with money, with his campaign financing. Our friend, good old Eric Swalwell. Eric Swallowwell, his code name, if he was a James Bond character, the California Democrat, infamous for betting the Chinese spy named Fang Fang. You remember that. Whispering sweet nothings about government secrets while he spilled the beans to her in all sorts of various positions, shall we say. So now the FEC records have been unearthed, and our Department of Justice is looking into some things that they call bizarrely inconsistent. Bizarre inconsistencies in the way that Swalwell and his finance committee for his campaign is treating money. Payments over $360,000 shelled out to a guy named Darley Mayer with excuses on his reimbursement and disbursement forms as travel reimbursement, car services, and security. Okay. Even part of his salary listed and came from Swalwell's campaign account. Now, that's not some expert. That's Swalwell. So now the experts are looking at this and going, now hang on just a second. So a whistleblower came forward who was involved in his campaign, who is no longer there, and I can break it down. Now it's important because Swalwell is one of those voices that you should all be aware of. I know you are, you know who he is, but since 2021, his campaign and he has a political action committee called Remedy. They have funneled more than 75 payments to this guy, Mr. Meyer. Some as small as $53, no big deal there, but some as large as $12,000. And it totals over $120,000 just last year. In 1 minute, the expense reports that I read this morning list security services. Then the next one is personal travel expense reimbursement. And then an event for flowers, which I don't know. I've got to dig into it. What is that? Is he buying flowers? Oh, I don't know what he's doing. But Meyer apparently owns a luxury limo service in North Hollywood. CYD Global Car Service, which is a high-end chauffeur limousine company for the elite Hollywood crowd, okay? He's also listed as an administrator for a progressive Facebook organization called Haitian American Facebook Group. All right. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Yeah. And that has ties to activities that encourage the open borders, the Haitian Bridge Alliance, which is a real radical group, which fights against things like Title 42 and helps illegal migrants get around the system so that they can live and work in America undetected by ICE and so forth. So Swalwell supporting all of this from behind the scenes, dirty, sweet, a scummy swamp creature. No doubt about it, right? Well, when pressed about all of this yesterday, Swalwell dodges the question, and he says those payments are to Darley. He's there to protect me and my family. That's my security team. He heads all of that up. Okay, protect from what? Protect Swalwell from his own bad decisions, you would think. California records show that Mr. Meyer doesn't even have a security license. And on X, so formerly known as Twitter, Swalwell is whining about the media questioning him and his $350,000 security spend to this guy. Classic deflection, classic deflecting of the truth, refuses to answer the question.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings, coming to you from smack dab in the middle of the fruited plain, dispensing intellectual maturity to all who listen. Thank you very much for being here with us on the Real Talk Radio Network and Community Financial Services Group. I want to make you aware of these guys and my friend Brent Ewert. They think that financial planning should be personal and they should be able to help you as partners for your life, your family, your children, your grandchildren, your retirement, college savings for your grandkids, a legacy, a financial legacy left behind for the people who you love. With decades of experience, they have fiduciary commitment, and Community Financial Service Group provides honest guidance, custom investment strategies. The team will not let you down over there. Feel free to give them a call. Based in Missouri, but can help you wherever you are. Take control of your financial future today with Community Financial Services Group. Give them a call, 816-322-7166, 816-322-7166. They have the distinct honor, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, of being the very first sponsor for The Right Side with Doug Billings on the Real Talk Radio Network. So thank you very much. And give them a call. So the swamp and the creatures that dwell within it, making you aware, keeping an eye out for you with regards to this, it's no wonder we get so angry and worked up because we see these people go into office and they come out multimillionaires. They go into office just maybe middle class, maybe upper middle class. Now, there's a few who do enter office who are already millionaires, but they sure do get richer. At least it seems that way. And so Swalwell's activity here, I mean, good grief. The money that he's given out to this guy, it just reeks of impropriety, and it makes us all, our eyebrows go up in doubt. It's like, wow, what, really? And the Fang fiasco with the China spy, Swalwell's out there. He can't be trusted with a dime of donor money, not to mention national secrets. I mean, how does a guy like that, the FBI got wind of this. He was investigated for the Fang and, the spy, the giving away of secrets and so forth. Now, they said that he didn't give away, top secret stuff. The Ethics Committee cleared him in 2023. Okay. No sensitive information was shared, but come on. Poetic justice for the guy who spent years screaming that Trump was a Russian agent, a puppet of Putin. I mean, give me a break. So, yeah, poetic justice. Let him feel a little bit of heat. How does someone like that, so compromised, end up on the House Intelligence Committee? I mean, glaring security risks. I'm an outsider. Would I want him with his kind of record with security? Want him on a committee like that? It just reeks of the deep state and the double standards that exist. So Meyer, this guy, that mess isn't Swalwell's first rodeo into shady spending. Oh, no. His campaign's been a veritable piggy bank for luxury living, letting him go to expensive places, exotic places. I mean, the record is clear. In 2023 alone, Swalwell dropped nearly $17,000 on yacht charters. There's a company called Just Dreaming. It's based in San Francisco. So yeah, he spent $17,000 on yachts, right, for fundraising. I guess we're supposed to believe that. And then there's $21,000 at the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay with his wife Brittany, okay, where she used to work as director of sales. Coincidence? Or just another way to funnel cash into family connections, I wonder. Add in thousands of dollars that he spent on booze, on steaks, and limousines during off-election periods, like $42,000 on post-election childcare in early 25. Ethics watchdogs in Washington flagged that almost immediately as a potential violation. And don't forget, then, he also travels around the world. Now, Swalwell isn't the only one who travels around the world on your dime. But I mean, staying at 5-star hotels in Dubai, the Burj Al Arab, Paris's Hotel La Mission, all right, more, totaling $90,000 in travel in 2023 alone. Really? You're telling me that he can't find a nice Marriott property somewhere? The guy's living like a king on his donors' dollars while preaching about fighting oligarchy with Trump, right? That's not just elite hypocrisy. It's the epitome of kookdom. Absolute nuts. Have you ever wondered why they become rich, how they become rich? Of course you have. And this is how they do it. I present to you Eric Swalwell. And his real talent isn't just that he's diverting money. His real talent shines when he's unhinged about Trump, right? Oh, my God, so talent, gaslighting, projection, everything that the radical liberal movement does to try to destroy this country. Eric Swalwell will say that it's us doing that it's Trump doing that. I mean, he's on a rampage lately. He's trying to become relevant within we all understand, or at least I hope you do. He's auditioning in a way to be on par with Gavin Newsom and the other members of the radical liberal hierarchy. You know, trying to threaten, we are going to have accountability with regards to what Trump did, right? He will threaten companies that dare to work with the Trump administration, saying that Congress should subpoena them to stop or deter the deals that are being made. That's straight out of the authoritarian communist-socialist playbook. Do everything you can, although it's, to stop something, even though that something is perfectly legal and legitimate. Do everything you can to stop it, which is exactly what they do to Trump. Anything that he does, it must be resisted. It must be deterred. It must be stopped. Anything. These people are sick. Trump is right. They have got mental issues. Swalwell, in his bizarre demand that 2028 Democrat candidates sign a pledge to demolish Trump's new $250 million ballroom. That's something they have to do on day one, according to Swalwell. Calling it some sort of a symbol of excess. Really? Excess? As if your trips to Dubai and staying in 5-star hotels and spending $17,000 on yachts isn't excessive? I mean, he's on board with this Epstein file nonsense, claiming that Trump's name is going to be on some sort of an Epstein, Lolita Island, which is all abject nonsense. Trump's name isn't anywhere near that list. What they do is they conflate the flight logs from New York to West Palm Beach when Trump's plane was in service. He did accept a ride on Epstein's plane to go back and forth from New York to West Palm, from Mar-a-Lago up to Trump Tower. But that was long before Epstein even bought his island and did anything horribly wrong with those kids. So they'll use that. If Trump was on some sort of a pedophile list, that list would have been leaked and discovered years ago. And then above all, and amid all of this stuff, you got Swalwell whining about death threats and harassments from Trump supporters. Well, I wonder why. First of all, I don't buy it. I don't think that Trump supporters make those kinds of claims. Next, how can we believe anything the guy says? So he is small beans, he's small potatoes. I bring it up because it popped up on the radar this morning, and it's an example of what they do. Gaslighting at its finest, projection. All of the insecurities and all of the scandals that the radical liberal left movement are responsible for in this country, they project onto us. The media buys into it. And then we have an entire swath of people who believe what they see on television news, and we have to combat that and wake people up. So I bring it up specifically because of that. We need to wake them up to the nonsense that these people present.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side, Doug Billings here with you as we stand shoulder to shoulder, endeavoring to save the republic from the radical left kook fringe out there, ladies and gentlemen. Halloween, everybody. A little chilly this morning where I'm at, but it's good. A little bit of fall in the air. Love this time of year. Halloween, but be careful. Be careful. The FBI unearthing all sorts of things, and one in particular up in Michigan makes us all just want to do a double take. Want to be sure we're careful. Kash Patel and the FBI have stopped, prevented a potential terrorist attack that was planned for this weekend. Multiple suspects in custody, young individuals with ties to foreign extremism. And possibly, we've been talking, well, if you've been listening to me since 2021, young people possibly connected to ISIS, inspired by ISIS, were arrested after plotting an act of violence for this weekend. And it's breaking news that came from Patel himself on X this morning when he announced, and I quote, "This morning, the FBI thwarted a potential terrorist attack and arrested multiple subjects in Michigan who were allegedly plotting a violent attack over Halloween weekend. More details to come, thanks to the men and women of FBI and law enforcement everywhere, standing guard 24/7 and crushing our mission to defend the homeland." So details on that still coming out, but here's what we know. The plot unfolded online in online chat rooms where an undercover FBI agent infiltrated early on and caught wind of all of this, their sinister plans, the things that they were planning. And agents grew alarmed after references to what was called Pumpkin Day, which was their code for Halloween, obviously, signaled an imminent threat leading to swift search warrants and action and arrests in Dearborn and a place called Inkster just outside of Detroit. And we've got confirmation that at least 2 arrests, with 3 more individuals being questioned. While the exact charges remain sealed, ladies and gentlemen, the group has a nexus, a root system into foreign extremism. So thankfully, officials assure us there's no ongoing threat to the public now, but it's close. It was a close call. It underscores the dangers that are lurking in our communities. And I have been saying this since Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris took office in 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, we must know this, and we must remind ourselves that because of their open border policy, their desire to cascade chaos down upon us, which is real, by the way, and which is definitely part of their plan. Because of that, there are hundreds and perhaps thousands of people, terrorists, who are in this country who want to do us harm. To deny that is to be blind to reality. It was all because of the disastrous open border policy. We saw record illegals crossing in here. We had no idea of who they were, and you all noticed it. Adult military-aged men coming in from the Middle East and from China, some from Russia. Who knows what the hell they're up to? And remember, the Biden administration rolled back all of those Trump-era security measures that we had in place, like you have to stay in Mexico or Title 42, creating a freeway into the United States for radicals, for people who really do want to do us harm. And I'm not fear-mongering. I'm just saying let's be real. Let's base ourselves in reality and be therefore observant, be vigilant, and let's make sure that we just keep our eyes open for anything that looks suspicious. And then you fast forward to 2025, and even with Trump back in office, cleaning up all of that mess, we're still dealing with the fallout. 4 years of negligence, 4 years of open borders, and you've got people like Kristi Noem and others who are now forced to actually have their homes where they live with their spouses, with their children, on United States military bases because of the threats they're getting. Now, these people up in Michigan, these suspects didn't just materialize overnight. They likely exploited the chaos at the southern border, embedding themselves in places like Michigan, because Michigan has, and I've been there when corporate America, I've been to Michigan many times. I've negotiated collective bargaining agreements with unions in Michigan. They have a very diverse community. There's lots of Muslims up there, lots of real problems with people who come into this country who don't like us. And so what we see from Kash Patel and the FBI is a victory, and it's a testament to how Kash Patel has revamped the FBI. We've got a true patriot in there now, appointed by Trump, who's refocused the Bureau on real threats instead of politicized witch hunts. So no more wasting resources on parents at school boards or Catholics who support right to life initiatives, or the January 6th folks who were victims of a coordinated liberal attack on our Capitol. Now it's about crushing ISIS wannabes, copycats, etc., defending the homeland, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine such a concept. It was so foreign to us when Biden and the cackle were in charge. But we're not going to pat our backs too hard yet, because it's a wake-up call. If Biden and Harris had their way, our borders would still be a welcome mat for those kinds of extremists to flow into this country. But how many are here? How many more plots are out there because liberals claim that their compassionate approach to immigration must be fulfilled? It's a farce. It's a crime. It puts us at risk. And ladies and gentlemen, just another example of how and why they want chaos to rain down upon us. So this Halloween, stay awake, folks. And it's not just about extremists who want to be ISIS. You got to be careful of what your kids bring home. You got to be careful of where they go. This is a different era, a different world. And you kids across America gearing up right now for trick-or-treating tonight. And we've got a real-life nightmare unfolding that every parent needs to hear. Authorities are out sounding the alarm on this. THC-infused treats disguised as innocent candy, and it's potentially sneaking into your child's hands. It's not just some urban legend. This is not fake news. It's a growing crisis that was fueled by the reckless marketing of legalized marijuana products. Now, I'm going to lay it out as direct as I can. And this is not a show on whether or not you support legal pot. That's not where I'm going here. But the dispensaries, the way they package this stuff and the way they push it is a problem, because people who want to do you harm with fentanyl or other things see the packaging, they model and copy the packaging, and it's out there. It's out there in the world. It's out there in our country. Again, in Michigan, I've seen stories in Missouri and in Kansas. Police departments bust open a stash of bags that looked like everyday chips and gummies, right? Candies, but they're laced with THC and even psychedelic mushrooms being laced into these things. I'm not condemning any of you who are pro-pot. The packaging, the marketing, deliberately designed to mimic popular treats, making it nearly impossible to spot the dangers at first glance, at least. And it's not isolated. It's everywhere. Florida, Missouri, Arkansas, Idaho. I've seen stories in all sorts of places. A cop pulls over a vehicle. And, in states where pot is illegal, police officers can still pull over cars. And if they smell marijuana, they can search the vehicle. They have reasonable cause to think there might be something else. If you legalize marijuana, they lose that ability.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
We know, we look at the news, we see Kash Patel, we see Dan Bongino, we see the FBI, you can say what you want about Pam Bondi, all of that mix. Here's my thing, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to, Kash Patel, because I know Kash. I've met him several times. I've had conversations with Kash Patel. He's been on my show a few times. I just don't believe Kash Patel is capable of misleading when he investigates these issues. Now, there may be times, of course, when he can't tell us everything. I mean, we all get that. But Kash Patel is one of the good guys. You can give yourselves permission to believe that. And for those who are impatient, because if they feel somehow disappointed in what Kash Patel is doing, and if that disappointment is based on things like, well, we haven't seen justice being carried out yet. Why are people perp walked? Why aren't people put in cuffs right in front of our very eyes? I want Nuremberg 2.0, that kind of stuff. So that we're not going to see Nuremberg 2.0. And I apologize that some people who are influencers would once upon a time say that kind of thing would happen. That's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. So give yourself permission to disassociate from people who tell you that kind of stuff. It's the same crowd who said when Trump, when the election was stolen for Trump, it's the same crowd who said, don't worry, the military is still in charge. Or don't worry, Trump is going to come back before 2024 because he signed executive orders before he left that has set all of this in motion. Remember the people that put forth the devolution? What a crock of nonsense. And they made bucket loads of money off of clicks purporting that nonsense. So we've got to begin to ground ourselves. And I know that you are. I'm just saying, when you talk with people who would dare to suggest that Kash Patel's not a good guy because it's been 7 months and we don't have any major arrests yet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, I remind you, with every ounce of respect, justice in America is not designed to be expeditious. It is not designed to give overnight results. Now, we're all about quick and speedy justice, but the word speedy doesn't mean overnight. It means as quickly as possible based on the investigations and the data and the evidence that is gathered. So it's been 7 months, and look at what we have seen. John Bolton, check. James Comey, check. John Brennan and others in line. You've got Jack Smith in line to be looked at, investigated, perhaps indicted. Look at what's going on. The drug bust and so forth in Michigan that we just talked about before the break. These kinds of things. The Fauci news, the auto pin news about how the pardons might not be valid if the auto pin was really used and Biden didn't know what the hell he was doing. All sorts of things surround us. So, again, have patience, because I see the chatter out there. I see it on social media, and I just want you good people to be aware. Based on my experience, having met Kash Patel and speaking with him in person and having him on the show, I just don't think he's capable of, purposefully misleading. Now, let's let him conduct investigation. And Bongino, I've never met Bongino, but I mean, nothing there that makes me think, yeah, he's not trustworthy. So we shall see. We just have to realize that we can't always know everything when we want to, and justice is not often designed to be swift as the founders intended. We must do our due diligence. We must see. And finally, again, only 7 months, folks. It's only been 7 months. Now, back to the topic, because that got me derailed, because during the break, I sojourned off into social media land, and I saw several people, not related necessarily to you guys, but other people talking about these topics. And I did reply to a couple of people on the app, but we look, I'm with you. I am shoulder to shoulder with you. We will discern this. We will arrive at truth. We will get there. We just need to get over this gut reaction that I want justice today. We've got to get over that, because that's not, first of all, that's not going to happen. We're going to be continually disappointed if we expect everything to happen right now. We need all of these people marched into prison. Nuremberg 2.0. I want to see public, blah, blah, blah. Well, deep breath. And let's just promise each other that we've got each other's backs, and we're going to walk each other through this. We're going to walk each other through it. So with regards to the Halloween issue and the candy and the drugs and so forth, and how it's marketed, in Florida, I just, again, reading this morning, cops pull over a vehicle and found that what appeared to be, it's colorful gumballs, some gummies and so forth, and they test positive for fentanyl. Now, this highlights how these kind of knockoffs are crafted to fool everybody. The cops couldn't even tell by looking at the packages. They had to take it to the lab to get it tested. So the West Palm Beach police chief said, your safety is our top priority, and swift action can save lives. So with fentanyl 50 times stronger than heroin, even a trace, if it's mispackaged, enables people to be killed. That's real danger that we need to be aware of. And so I'm not here to debate the legality of pot. That's a state issue, and folks can make that decision on their own within each state that they live in. I'm just fired up about this because of the marketing and the packaging from these legal dispensaries that seem to be aimed at children, and the confusion that it can cause and the risk that these children are in if it falls into their hands. I mean, they crank out edibles that look exactly like Sour Patch Kids or Pop-Tarts or gummy bears. Bright colors, fun shapes, zero warning labels that scream out, not for kids, none of that. And so it's no accident that we see accidents happen. How about that? It's no accident that we see accidents. It's a tactic that's designed to appeal to users, and it puts the most innocent among us at a massive risk. So let's just be aware today and tonight when your kids are out and about, when they come home. I don't want to read any headlines. I don't want to read any fresh headlines of accidental overdose and so forth. I just want, just be aware. It really is. I just am, as a father and as someone who cares, don't want to see people hospitalized after munching on laced edibles that are really incidents that are not rare, ladies and gentlemen. They're surging in America. And the potency, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this is not the weed from your junior high or college days we're talking about here. Back in the 70s and in the 80s, the average THC levels were about 1 to 4%. Fast forward to today, and the lab manufactured strains are hitting 30% more. Some edibles, concentrates of that are skyrocketing to 90%.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
And we're here live, Real Talk Radio Network. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say a few things about the issue with regards to the FBI, Kash Patel, and so forth and so on, and the desire for quick and speedy justice, and this, the call for perp walks and immediate gratification in terms of justice for the people like Fauci and others. Okay, there's no one out there that wants justice for those things and issues and more than me. What I'm simply suggesting to you is that the conservative side, our side, we do not solve the problems of tyranny that were cascaded down upon us by the radical left movement in this country, like the arrest of J6ers and so forth. We don't rush in and solve those issues of tyranny with tyranny. We don't engage in tyranny ourselves in order to solve those problems. We follow the law. We are the party of law and order. That is the basic foundation and principle by which we operate. And unfortunately for us, it does not happen quickly. when you follow the rules. There's cases to be built. And when people say things like, well, Kash Patel hasn't done anything since he's been in office except cover up the Charlie Kirk assassin. So I don't have any patience for that, because right away, Kash Patel hasn't done anything. I mean, that's just not true. Hasn't done anything? Come on. I mean, I understand the frustration. I get it. And I have empathy for the frustration, but let's at least engage in truth. I don't care what you believe about the Charlie Kirk assassination. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with realizing that there's a great amount of effort going on behind the scenes in these last 7 months when Kash Patel has been the director of the FBI, much of which, by the way, we are not even aware of. So I am a couple of things. One is I'm a believer of truth. And the second of all, I am one who will point out kooks whenever I see them, because kooks are a danger to our conservative movement. They make people stay on the sidelines. They divert attention from what is reality into some sort of fantasy. And we can't have that if we're to be successful in reclaiming this republic away from the radical left movement. We simply cannot have people say and believe Kash Patel hasn't done anything since he took office. There are far too many people who are not as awake as us who might believe that. And then they get frustrated. They sit on the sidelines. They don't get involved. They wipe their hands. They wash their hands. Say, I'm done. I am not going to get involved because, look, this guy says that Kash Patel hasn't done anything. And, he's probably right. Come to think of it, I haven't seen much of anything either. And so people go off and they believe this stuff, and it takes our movement off of the battlefield. And the battlefield is involvement. It's us getting involved. And we get involved and we address things with truth and accuracy. We've got to get rid of the blanket statements. Nothing is happening. Well, that's simply, with respect, not true. And so I don't make any predictions about things like, well, how long is it going to be until we see legal action? We've already seen legal action. What do you think John Bolton's going through right now, or James Comey? What do you think the potential Jack Smith is getting ready? Brennan on the list. Maybe even Mike Pence. You've got all of these things that are in the hopper waiting. Well, I want them now, Doug. You're not doing me any good because I want them now. I am here to talk you off that ledge. Come back into the room of logic and reasonableness and come in off of the ledge of Kookville. We are not going to have anything remotely similar to Nuremberg, so don't even use it as an example. It's not going to happen that way. And we wouldn't ever be in this situation primarily because of the theft of an election. I understand that, but it's because we as conservatives were not involved thoroughly in truth and in local involvement. That's why we're here. Remember, the radical liberal movement has been doing this for 180 years. And for many of you, you're on 180 years. Well, wait a minute. This all really just happened in 2020. No. I mean, I understand 2020 is an earmark for us. It's a bookmark, because that's when the theft of the election took place, and that's when COVID happened, and so forth and so on. And it seems like that's the big reawakening moment, or when the left really got involved in stealing things. No, they've been doing it for a long, and our side has not been always on the up and up either. The radical left movement in this country has done exactly what we have not done for 180 years, and they got involved. John and Jane Doe on the streets of America, who think that they're Democrats back in the day, they got involved in their local levels of government. That's how we lost school boards. That's how we lost boards of county commissioners. That's how we lost universities. And oh, yes, of course, rich radical liberals like Soros, and in the beginning, John Rockefeller, John Dewey, and Andrew Carnegie, all with their money and all with their socialist agenda, began to take over. And we, although we've done many great things as conservatives, we were not fundamentally and thoroughly enough involved in our local governments. And therefore, and thereby, here we are. To course correct 180 years of radical liberal involvement does not happen in 7 months. We engage in the truth and we pursue it rigorously. We need, believe me, J.D. Vance to succeed Trump in the White House. We need 12 years with a conservative Republican president in the White House. And I'm not going to talk about the 2028 Bannon. Hey, what if Trump runs again? My opinion on that, it's time for Vance. Trump can be a great statesman. He's going to be too old in 2028. Trump can, and he is, mentoring J.D. Vance. And I think that's the route. I think that's the path. So all of that to say, give yourselves the blessing of patience, but also please engage in what I call determined patriotism, the involvement of you in your local communities, school boards, boards of county commissioners, aldermen, watching and being a paid election observer. We have an election day next week in this country. We have midterms next for primaries next August in some states and a primary election in November. We have got, please just get involved, look at the truth, and give yourselves the benefit of the doubt to know and understand that things are happening that aren't even known yet. So that's wow, way to go. That's one hell of a tangent. But I have such passion for wanting you all to know the truth and to see it and to act accordingly and disassociate. If anybody out there, if you follow anybody as a source of news who has claimed the military is running the country or that Trump was going to be ushered back into the White House before 2024. Point A is obviously that didn't happen. Point B is it was never true, ladies and gentlemen, never true. People like, they want clicks instead of credibility. And in our social media platforms, people can make money based on how many clicks they get. And so they will put up the most outlandish stuff. If you're ever on X, formerly known as Twitter, and you see two brothers, Ed and Brian Krasenstein, they are excellent at putting up clickbait, and they make a fortune because of it. No credibility. All of it's inflammatory nonsense, and people respond to it, and people comment and click, 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 click. And meanwhile, ka-ching, 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 ka-ching into the Krasenstein bank account. So, all right. I'm going to walk myself off that ledge, ladies and gentlemen, and come back into the room with you because we have some real important things to talk about on this Halloween day. I want you to know I say all of that because I care. I care about the Republic, and I understand that you do too. It's just that we often find ourselves rooting for tyranny, don't we? We have been sometimes seduced to think that, well, we need to see immediate action. I mean, there were people that really do want to see Hillary Clinton go to Gitmo, for example. Folks, that's not going to happen. Now, she might be held accountable and have some penalties, and she might be under indictment one day. We'll see. But the whole deal, that whole visual that gets stirred up with Gitmo. I mean, there are people out there that believe that, went with it. Nonsense. I'm here for you. I'm here to give you the unvarnished truth based in reality. And I know that 99.9% of you are with me. It just makes me want to speak up on these kinds of things. Thank you, John Wick. It's an excellent tangent. Thank you very much. Well, I believe it. I believe this is how we win. This is how we take back the Republic. And yes, it was under attack 180 years ago. I don't know what you know about John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and John Dewey, but they were not good people. They were captains of industry. I've completed it, a series called America in Color on Netflix. And part of the series talked about the influence of the Rockefeller, Carnegie, and so forth. They were captains of industry. They took full part in capitalism and made a whole bunch of money. But they were also all three of them, avowed socialists. And I don't get anything for mentioning this, but Socialism Under the Microscope is the name of a book. You should buy this book, Socialism Under the Microscope, by Rodney Howard Brown and Paul L. Williams. For those of you watching the program, I'm holding up the book for you now. Socialism Under the Microscope. It gives you all of this history. Dewey, Rockefeller, Carnegie, avowed socialists who used their money to capture American educational institutions. Because after all, if you want to build up a socialist government and a socialist society in America, where do you begin? Schools, of course. You radicalize them, they churn out more radicals, more communists, more socialists, and that's where you begin. And that's exactly what they did. And for 180 years, the radical left, you and our counterparts got involved and they pursued all of that. And here we are today. The good news is, I'm not suggesting for a moment that we have to wait, it's going to take us 190 years to course correct. No. Primarily because we're smarter. Conservatives are smarter than liberals. Okay. You've also heard me say they're better looking. That's true. Statistically speaking, true. I can point out that evidence. But we are not going to need 190 years to course correct. We can do this much quicker, much faster. We are smarter. I mean that. We are capable to course correct. We're doing it right now. And when I look at this country, the difference between the American patriot movement, the Make America Great Again movement, for example, between 2020 and 2025, the things that we've done and accomplished are monumental. Monumental. The victories that Trump has presented us with, his agenda, absolutely astonishing. If I were to list every one of Trump, and I've done this, I did it in his first term. I have not yet done it for a second. He's only 7 months in. But if you were to list, and as I did, each one of his successes, you would have a list of over 200 items, and it would just read and read and read.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I understand we all have passion about all of it. We're all on the same team. And no one is here claiming that we all need to agree and be in lockstep on 100% of these items. But if I do anything, it's to encourage and to also, to share my belief that in America today, even in spite of what we've seen from the radical left movement in this country, there is great hope on the horizon of America. America is it's an incredible place. Certainly a lot of things that we can, that can bring us down in the news if we let them, but also we're conservatives. And, I remember when I was in corporate America as the vice president of human resources, and, as a human resource person, you're part parent, part priest, part pastor. You get to hear the sins of the people. You get to forgive people. You get to mentor people. You see all of the good, the bad, and the ugly when you're in HR. And of course, nobody wants to go to the HR guy's office, right? Well, I would have people come in. This is an example, okay, of what I believe conservatism allows us to do. Because the radical snowflake element in this country that has been present for so long and has now come to surface, in this country with their nonsense. I liken it to this story. In human resources, it was common for adult people to come into my office and say, well, she hurt my feelings, or he hurt my feelings, or what they did, that just hurt me, blah, 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 whatever. And it could have been any number of topics, could have been any issue. And I remember distinctly, sitting in my chair, talking with these people and thinking to myself, and then finally beginning to say it to people, wait a minute. So let me make sure I understand. They said this, that hurt your feelings. Yes, that's right. That's exactly what happened. So here's the deal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is impossible. It is impossible for anybody to hurt your feelings. 100% impossible. And let that sink in. Unless, of course, you give them permission to. Then, of course, they can hurt your feelings anytime. And that's what snowflakes are. That's what Karens are. That's the whole, I need a safe room to take my final exam. That's the everybody gets a trophy generation coming to fulfillment. That's what that breeds. That's what that creates. Is that people that think I'm just this delicate little, she hurt my feelings. We conservatives are not like that. And that's why I have hope for this nation. Because we understand that we engage in this country in determined patriotism and that it's going to take time. We don't just get things overnight. We certainly don't get things in 7 months when the government is involved. Things can be expeditiously done and we can be as quick as possible, but we as conservatives are the reason that this country hasn't spun completely out of control. The pockets of people throughout this republic who pray, I'm convinced that this is the truth. People who pray on a regular basis, who pray for the country, pray for the republic, for President Trump, for each other. It's precisely because of that that this country hasn't spun into chaos completely, instead of just the pockets of chaos that we see mostly in blue states around the country. It's because of that. And yes, it's a spiritual battle that we're involved in, 100% that it is. And we respond through our good work, our involvement, and prayer. And I'm convinced God founded this country. He inspired it. And we have with us 3 documents that are inspired by God and written by men, in my estimation. And that is, of course, the Holy Bible, and then our Constitution and Declaration of Independence. All of them inspired by God, all of them written by men. And we are not on our deathbed, although there were people that would have you believe that we are. We are not. We have awakened, and we are going to course correct. We have a lot of work to do. We have entire generations that have been bamboozled into thinking, being part of the participation trophy generation, the wussification of both men and women because of what the feminist movement did, where we don't need the traditional family. We don't need men. We can do this on our own. And that there is, no equality. We are all, look, it was actually very, very sad to see all of that in the 60s, the advocation that we should find ourselves free from the traditional family, and that we're coming back to it now is great news. You know that the Generation Z movement, this cannot be understated. The Generation Z young men and young women are more conservative now than they've been ever. And they're coming back to traditional American values, traditional family values, which are, as we know, traditional Christian values. That's what American traditional values are. They are Christian values. When we do that, when we come back to that, we see more and more blessing unfold. We see that the blessings that are yet unborn become born and become fulfilled. And so we encourage these young people. Please encourage them to get involved. Encourage them in whatever way you can, whether it's a relative, a niece, a son, a daughter, a grandchild, whatever. Encourage them. Because that's it. That's what, now, on the other side of the coin, that's what the radical left did. They convinced their kids to tear it all down. We've got to convince ours to go out and build it up again. And they are. More Generation Z, young men and young women, want to get married, want to have a family with as many kids as they can afford, and live and find the American dream. And we have a responsibility to help them get there. In a very small way, in your local governments, if you're in a state that has a Republican governor, Missouri, if you're in a state that has Republican leadership in your legislature, you should be helping these young Generation Z people, and yourselves for that matter, discover the American dream by advocating that property tax needs to be abolished, or at the very least, remodified, redefined. Because in my view, the way that it's set up now, it does not have constitutionality. Now, I know that the courts have voted for it, but ladies and gentlemen, it stops property tax. It stops our ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And we've got to really revamp that system, if not just get rid of it. And that's why. Why not talk about that? Why? Because people are going to laugh at us if we say that? Because people are going to say that we're crazy? It's that kind of dreaming that built the republic, and it's that kind of issue that the founders fled and left from England. That kind of tax that those are just real world examples of what's going on today with regards to how we can encourage not only our governments, governors and state legislatures, but this young Generation Z demographic who really need our help, and they need our encouragement to continue on. I've got more years behind me than I do ahead of me. Now, I'm not planning on dying unless I want at least 25 or 30 more years, but geez, we got these kids coming up. We need to leave them. We need to leave them, if not with a solid foundation and a restored republic, we've at least got to leave them with the encouragement that they can do that. And we don't do it by following the kooks, the ones who are after clickbait. We don't do it by believing in the myth of, Gitmo or Nuremberg 2.0 or a military who's running our government or the QAnons, all of it. Sorry if that discourages you, and if you are really hung up on that stuff, I am sorry. And like I said, we do not have to agree on it all, but I have a mission, and that is to dispense truth. And this is what we do. The truth is we shouldn't depend on any of that nonsense. I don't care what letter of the alphabet you're talking about. I don't care what story. We shouldn't depend on anything other than us, because that's what the founders intended. The carrying on of this tradition, of this republic, rests solely with we the people.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.